right, well, everybody, welcome to the 2016 Baton Rouge Blues Festival, day 2 of 2. My name is Achee, and I have the privilege today of interviewing Elvin Killerbee, Baton Rouge legend. Sorry, man. That's a dubious honor, but I think you earned it. So let's start. You grew up here in Baton Rouge?
I did. I grew up in Baton Rouge. Was born in Texas, but came here real early, 3 months old, so I really don't remember. But
yeah,
been here pretty much ever since. I did a little time in California, and been back for 15 years at least, or more, probably 20.
What were your earliest memories? What was the first musical bug that sort of caught you?
My bug way back then was I played drums first, and I was really into drums, but I wanted to write songs, and you can't write songs on drums, so to speak. So I changed to guitar, and I really got into the Beatles and music of the 60s and things like that. And then I kind of discovered the blues guitar, and then I went in kind of a different direction, you know, and started concentrating on that and just playing, so to speak. But
that's an interesting transition, though. That I've always found that you might be just right to explain, in that Americans gave the world the blues, and then the British gave it back to us.
That's right.
And so if you're of a certain age, the first blues licks you heard were probably more likely coming from the Rolling Stones, the Animals, or something like that.
yeah, Clapton, all the guys, the Europeans that came, and you're exactly right about that, because I didn't know, one of my first heroes was Jimmy Page, and he was really a blues. I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't necessarily know what it was.
He was stealing everything he could get his hands on.
And all their influences were
Sure.
B.B. King and Albert King, and you know, even Jimi Hendrix, of course. And so, you know, going through those people and finding out who they liked, well, then I investigated myself, and that turned into Albert King and Albert Collins and Freddie King.
But that's a cool thing to be a young guy, and your idols live far away, and then you get into what they're into, and it's all within like 100-mile radius of you.
Yeah.
You're in a hot spot.
I did appreciate it back in the 90s, going to Phil Brady's blues jams where you could meet a community of musicians. And at that time, a lot of them have passed now, but we still got James Johnson. Rudy has passed, and Raffel's passed, and some others. But it was great being around them and you know, kind of learning just from the experience, not necessarily lessons, but hearing them and learning, you know, what you're supposed to do or try to do, you know. That's important.
So as you were growing up, what was that the first place that sort of you had an opportunity to go into?
In town?
And start working on your skills?
Yeah, for the blues-oriented stuff. I was in a few other bands, some pop bands way back in the day before I started, like I said, concentrating on guitar. And it was really people like Brian Setzer from the Stray Cats and Stevie Ray come out, and that's when I kind of morphed over.
Interesting.
Because I really, you know, the guitar sounded like a guitar, you know, because during that time there was a lot of rock stuff, which a lot of it was good, but it was oversaturated guitars and
somebody had invented the synthesizer by that point, and nobody could do without it. It seemed like
the '80s production style technology changed a lot of it, and now it's kind of come back to, well, and then it went again, but.
As it
talk
does.
About digital.
As it does. No, but that's an interesting point. You seem to be coming into a more rustic, roots-oriented music during a very glossy time for pop culture.
And it was people like I said, Brian Setzer and Stevie Ray.
Sure.
Who both of those guys, you know, were way out of place in the '80s.
Yeah.
But they did well because they were so good.
So you start moving in. What were some of the? I mean, there's only a handful of places. What were some of the places that you were able to play around? And who? I mean, who was feeding your musical appetite? Because those guys were. I mean, you were
Locally, you talking
yeah,
about?
locally, because you were a young sprout, and there were some true legends.
There
hanging
was.
around.
My favorites have always been James Johnson is part of my favorite local player. Of course, I love Rudy. The Neils are good, Kenny, and all those guys.
Absolutely.
And I know there's more, but just in general, those three come to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. What were the places that you were able to play? What were the good juke joints, good bars?
We played, Phil Brady's. I never did actually have a gig at Tabby's. I used to go to Tabby's and on the jam and stuff like that. Just various clubs, and I don't even think they're here, a lot of them anymore, in Baton Rouge anyway.
They're legendary now. They're the stuff of like myth. But I really like the myth. I mean, Tabby's on North Street.
Yeah.
Phil Brady's. I mean, Teddy's juke joint.
Teddy's is a great place.
Is great, but I mean, it's a relatively.
It's out there. It's out
there.
Close to where I live, actually. But that's a great place to play.
Absolutely.
Great vibe.
All right, so as you feel like you've developed, one of my favorite things about your style or your music is that you never weigh too heavy on one style. I never feel like a sort of cliche bluesman. There's a lot of rock and roll, a lot of singer-songwriter stuff in what you do, with a nice helping of blues. But what is it about blending, and what is it that you're trying to blend? Is it on purpose?
I think that when it comes to writing songs, I find it harder to write a straight blues song. I tend to more of the I don't know, not modern pop, but the older pop and rock stuff. And then, of course, the way I play guitar, I mean, there's a blues element to all of it. I try not to be a copycat or anything like that,
Absolutely.
So, and I don't mind getting away from traditional stuff on the guitar. I mean, if it sounds good, do it. Try to use it as much as you can.
You don't consider yourself a purist in any
No,
way.
not really.
Yeah. But you're building upon the building blocks that have
Right.
been sort of laid down. There's a real good foundation there.
That's a much better way to put it.
Excellent. Excellent. So, I mean, what are you up to right now? I mean, what are you doing right now?
Well, I put out my last album, and that's been about a year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And just playing. Need to start working on another one.
Mm-hmm.
And I really would like to come up with a kind of a new set list, change it up a bit. So that's kind of where my mind is at on that.
Right on. Are there things that you really hope to do for the future? Are there some sort of like unchecked off boxes on your wish list?
Yeah. Making a lot of money is one of them. It takes a while to check that one off.
Yeah.
Probably a little more traveling.
Yeah.
I've got a daughter who's graduating next month.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
So thank you. Things will be a little different. As a matter of fact, she's got a piano recital today. So after I play, it's somewhere down here. I got the address.
Yeah.
I'm gonna head off for that, and she's really good.
Fantastic. So there's music. I mean, the musicality is gonna survive another generation.
I think so with her. She's doing classical piano and.
Oh wow! I was
Yeah.
about to ask if has she been able to sort of turn you on to anything that you wouldn't have found without a young person around?
Well, actually, there's a lot she does that is very hard to do on the guitar. But yeah, harmonically, there's tons of it. And she does a little jazz too.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's gonna go to LSU for music. So I'm sure she'll be fine.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, I actually just had my first kid, so now I
Oh,
really
did
do. Anytime I feel like somebody's like, I got a kid that's graduating from high school, I'm like, congratulations,
Yeah.
you made it.
Well, she made
She
it.
survived. You.
She did most of it. I mean, we never had to tell her anything. She She's a rule follower, unlike me.
Oh, man. That skips a generation.
Yeah.
You have hellacious grandchildren.
Possibly.
As far as your band, you played with, if I'm correct, you played with the sort of basically the same group of guys now for a hot minute.
Yep. It's James Slaughter's been with me for years and years now. And there's Greg on drums and 2 or 3 drummers. Nikki's playing with me, Nikki DeMaio today. Joey Breland does a lot with me too. These guys are great. Great band.
I was about to say, I'd have a hard time imagining you guys stepping into a gig without like, this just isn't going well.
When it's usually us 3, the same ones. It's usually fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. You want to talk about just the sort of blues, but also just the Baton Rouge music scene, just in general. You've seen, I'm sure, many crests and many waves go on.
Things have changed a lot since, I'd say, the early 90s. Live music in general is just not what it used to be, it seems to me. With a lot of karaoke and there's so many other things, distractions. People just don't go out to hear live music like they used to. Maybe the younger kids do.
No, let me jump in. No, they're not. I'm terribly afraid the internet's going to kill rock and roll.
Yeah.
But no, it is. But there is also what you said. There's a lot of distractions.
There is. I mean, people used to, have album parties and listen to, go somewhere just to listen to music.
Just to listen to an album.
Nobody does that anymore. Radio stations, you hear songs and they don't even tell you who they are. And
Jerks. What no, it's a pet peeve of mine, man. I'm on the radio and I'm like really big.
Yeah.
If somebody very young is listening to me, somebody might think it's really silly that I announce, that's a Rolling Stones song. But if somebody really young,
you have to.
No, like they need to know that. So what was it that you feel like made it strong? When was it, in the early 90s? What enabled a strong sort of live music scene to sort of excel here?
Well, there were more. I say there were more places to play. I don't know how many there are today, but it seemed like there were. And just live music in general was more popular as something to do. I'm starting to sound negative. I don't want to do that.
No, there's some really wonderful bands in Baton Rouge right now.
There's some great bands.
I'll give you a
Baton
positive
Rouge.
spin. There are some really incredible young bands in Baton Rouge right now, but they don't have places to play, and it's hard to get people to come to see them. And so there's I think there's something to be learned from how it used to exist.
Right, and I think and I'm speaking of in the sort of blues scene. There's it's kind of slowed down a little bit. And we used to have, it seems to me, younger kids, a lot of young kids come in, and they were my age back then, but and they're not, year after year, they seem to be dwindling and dwindling, the more, as far as young people go. But it's still a great art form, and it'll always be around, I think, if you're good enough at it. People I appreciate real players. Somebody that can, just perform, be it singing or guitar or drums or anything.
No, absolutely.
And there are a lot of good bands. There's a lot of good young musicians, too.
Is there anybody, either locally or nationally, that's new, that's young, that you're really into right now?
You know who I like? They're not new anymore, but Alabama Shakes.
Oh yeah, they're really good.
I love those guys.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting thing. It's certainly, I don't think anybody would call Alabama Shakes blues music, but you'd be hard pressed to. I mean, they're certainly influenced by American roots music.
Yeah, Stax Records.
Yeah.
That kind of sound.
Soul.
And Otis, they sound like, and they kind of sound like Creedence a little bit, too.
Yeah.
But they're just a great band, and they know how to arrange the song simply, and the singer is wonderful.
She's dynamite.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But I love it. I love how they're young too, you know.
So I, at some point, want to hand it over. Do any of you guys have any questions? All right, man. It's been a true pleasure. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Elvin Killerbee, Baton Rouge Blues Fest 2016. Thanks you guys for coming and listening.